think that it's only possible to commit adultery in the heart with someone who's not your spouse, right? You might think that it's acceptable and proper that you could desire or lust after the person you're married to. And John Paul II is going to walk us through why this is not what Jesus is saying. And it's based on our earlier analysis of concupiscence and also the dignity of the human person. Jesus is calling us to this higher standard to love and not to use. And there were a couple quotes that I just wanted to point out that stuck out to me. John Paul II writes that Christ makes the moral evaluation of desire depend above all on the personal dignity of the man and the woman. And this is important both in the case of unmarried persons and perhaps even more so in the case of spouses, husband and wife. And then he goes on to really very directly answer the question about adultery in the heart when it comes to your spouse. And he points out that it's not just who the man is looking at, right? Like how they're related or not related to each other, but it is the way in which he looks. So he says, even if he were to look in this way at the woman who is his wife, he would commit the same adultery in the heart. A man can commit such adultery in the heart, even with his own wife, if he treats her only as an object for the satisfaction of drives. Okay, so this caused a huge uproar, actually, at the time in the media. There was a little footnote about that, and I remember Christopher West talking about it, too. And I tried to find, like, some of the articles and stuff that were written at the time, but there were people in and out of the church that were, like, super concerned that the Pope was saying that all sexual pleasure is bad, right? Even within marriage. And that's actually the opposite of what he is saying. He's really saying we don't elevate the sexual embrace enough when we reduce it only to pleasure and the use of others. And I was just reflecting about that and like what it reveals about kind of what we often believe about the sexual act. I mean, often we just equate it with lust, and we just assume that you can't actually separate those two things. And I think that's where formation comes in, or lack of formation. I think it's fairly common, even in Christian marriages, for people to have been raised thinking that, like, marriage is the only acceptable place for lust. And so like, just hold on till you're married.
And then you can do whatever you want.
And then you can do whatever you want. And I think that's actually very, very common. And it obviously leads to a lot of problems for people.
On page 226 of the commentary, they do give the Washington Post article.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so if people are interested, they can see that it's called A Lesson on Lust for the Vatican. And so this reporter basically tells John Paul II that he's wrong, and let me tell you exactly what it is, what is correct. And the ironic part about it is he went way over her head, and so her correction has nothing to do with what he was saying. Yeah. But she was basically saying exactly what you just said, Rochelle. Like, if a man has lust in his heart for his wife, he won't commit adultery with anyone else. So it's actually good for him to lust after his wife. Sorry, you don't know that, Pope, because you're celibate and don't understand that. And so she was like very condescending to him, which she was, again, missing the whole point of the interiority of her heart.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. I think, again, we've mentioned before that analogy about, we get so used to life after the fall being the way that it is, and male and female relationship, that we assume that's normal, right? We're driving around on those flat tires thinking that's normal. And Jesus came to say, no, let's inflate those tires and show you the way that we're meant to be. And Christopher West, there was another great thing in the commentary where he clarified, like, people can often think that marriage is supposed to be like relief from lust, as in like sort of an outlet, but he says actually it's the remedy. Marriage is the remedy for lust, that we actually can find freedom and healing. He says that, in the commentary, he says, the grace of marriage offers a healing of concupiscent desire. Through the healing power of the redemption of the body, men and women can progressively re-experience sexual desire as God created it to be, the desire to love as he loves in the sincere gift of self. Yes. So I think there's just a lot of people just don't know, that this actually isn't the way it's supposed to be, and that there can be freedom and genuine love there and not use. So, I thought that was pretty powerful. And the fact that people had such a strong reaction, I just think it just reveals kind of where we are, as a people and just our fallen nature. So.